Hello, I'm Junot Diaz. I was born and raised in Santo Domingo, the Dominican Republic, and I'm going to be reading from my book Islandborn, which I created with Leo Espinosa. And I wanted to thank you all for joining us here and for the opportunity to do this. So, um, Islandborn comes out of a lot of my own experiences. I was, like I said, raised in the Dominican Republic on the island of Hispaniola in the Caribbean. And the memories of those years are very, very important to me. I loved growing up on the island and all the experiences that I have there. I recall very, very sharply and very vividly. And the book came out of that. I wrote Islandborn about a small girl, Lola, who left the island when she was very, very little. So, unlike me, she has no memories of the place that she's from, no memories of this sort of wondrous place. So, I'm going to start reading, and then I'll talk to you a little bit, and we'll go from there. From Islandborn. Every kid in Lola's school was from somewhere else. Hers was the school of far away places. Mine was from a city so big that it was like its own country. India and Camila were from a stony village at the tippy top of the world. Mateo had lived in a desert so hot, even the cactus fainted. Nu was born in a jungle famous for its tigers and its poets. And Lola was from the island. So when her teacher, Mrs. Obi, told the class, please draw a picture of the country you are originally from, your first country, and bring it in tomorrow, everyone got super excited. I'm going to put in pyramids, said Dahlia. And I'll draw a canal this long, Franklin said. There's gonna be a mongoose in mine, Nelson yelled. Nelson always yelled. Everyone was talking about their drawings. Everyone but Lola. Lola, you see, loved to draw, but she had left the island when she was just a baby, so she didn't remember any of it. Yeah, I sort of was different than Lola. I kind of had a lot more memories of the island, and my experience was interesting. I lived with my grandparents, and my grandfather had a farm that we spent a lot of time on. He had a farm in Aswa, a farm where he grew coffee, and he had, chickens, and he had um, goats, and he had pigs, and grandfather was a sort of a, lo quería un montón. I just loved him, and he was great at everything. Um, I remember hearing this saying about farmers that they are the masters of 1,001 jobs, and that was really true of him. And I remember, being on that farm and really wanted to participate. I wanted a job, and my grandfather, he was like, okay, I'll give you a job. And we had all these chickens and these little chicks, these little yellow fuzzballs running around. And my grandfather was like, okay, I'm going to put you in charge of the chicks. You have to keep an eye on them and make sure that nothing happens to them. And, I was very happy. I took this job very seriously. The thing was, is that, as I mentioned in the book and in other places, the Dominican Republic and Haiti, we have a mongoose, which for those of you who don't know, mongoose are like, they look like squirrels, but they're incredibly fast. And they're very, very smart. And they sure do like, the taste of chicken. And, so I had to keep my eye on them. And every morning I made sure that, 8 or 9 little chickies came out. And every night I made sure that 8 or 9 little chickies came in. Kind of where I learned to count. And, I still remember that I would see these mongoose because they were like very social. And, they would come to the edge of the compound, my grandfather's farm, and they would just stand up on their hind legs and look. And I would look at them, and I'd be like, "Yo," I'd speak to them. I'd be like, "Don't come near my chickens." And yeah, that was the kind of life we led out there. I mean, it was very, very beautiful. And there's, of course, lots of challenges. As a kid, you don't see any of that. Your grandparents, your parents keep you from all the craziness. But yeah, I had a wonderful time. So Lola is got this assignment, got to draw a picture of the island, doesn't remember it. So she, of course, starts interviewing people, you know, and that's the idea that she comes up with. Um, she's like, hey, I'm going to ask people who remember the island, and I'm going to draw a picture from their memories. So, you know, um, here we return to the story. Yeah. Are you okay? Her cousin Leticia asked as they walked home from school together. I have to draw a picture of the island, Lola explained. But I was just a baby when we left. Prima, you have to help me. Well, I don't remember a lot either, except for the bats. They were as big as blankets, and they used to chase me at night. Blanket bats. Lola pulled out her notebook and began to sketch. Leticia stopped Mrs. Bernard, who always sold them crispy empanadas after school. Mrs. Bernard, what do you remember most about the island? Why, the music, of course, she said. The whole country is like the inside of a huira, like the inside of a drum. You mean like our neighborhood? Lola said. The neighborhood had so much music, it was like a radio with the dial broken off. On the island, there's even more music. There's more music than air, and everyone is always dancing. Even in their sleep, people dance. Sleep dancing, Lola sketched. And it was kind of that experience. I had, again, I was telling you about my grandfather and his farm. And my grandfather, I don't know, he kind of was really into bats. I know that sounds kind of kooky, but at night as the sun set on the farm, all these bats would come out. Um, and they would be all zigging and zagging in the air. They were kind of like these little, you know, little pieces of, living lightning in a way, just kind of all over the place. And my grandfather would love them. He would sit there on his chair and he would look up and he would just laugh as they were coming out. And of course, I was a kid and I would be hiding in the house, looking out through the door at these bats. I was really scared of them, but he loved them. And every now and then, a bat would land, would hit the ground, and it would have its little arms, wings out. And I was really kind of scared of them. But my grandfather kind of brought me over carefully. And first time I'd ever seen a bat, there's little wings, they get the little hooks at the end of it. It was remarkable. And, those are the memories that stick by you. A lot of times, especially now I'm living in Boston, nature is not always so close. Yeah, not always so close. So Lola is interviewing folks, and of course she comes home. Her parents, her mother, and her abuela, her grandmother from the island. So here we join her. Abuela, Lola said, I'm supposed to draw a picture of the island for school, but I don't remember it. Why don't I remember it? Hija, her abuela said, you were just a baby when you left. But the other kids remember. Well, just because you don't remember a place doesn't mean that it's not in you. Will you tell me what you remember most? Lola asked. Of course. What I remember most are the beaches. Hija, our beaches are poetry. You know when you hear your favorite poem? That's how it is to be on our beaches. Fish jump up from the waves into your lap. And sometimes at sunset, The dolphins will come out of the water to bow good night. And up north, where I'm from, there are even whales in the surf. Beach poetry, dolphins, surfing whales. Lola sketched as fast as she could. Lola's mother stuck her head in from the kitchen. Iha, what I remember most is the hurricane that hit the island right before you were born. Like the biggest, baddest wolf of all. It huffed and puffed and blew thousands of houses into the sky. Where were we? Lola asked, her eyes wide. We were hiding under the bed is where we were, Abuela said. That's right, her mother said. And you know what? You never cried once. You were such a brave little girl. I wish I could remember that, Lola sighed. Well, it happened, her mother said. You might not remember the island, but it remembers you. And, this is from my own experience as a kid. In the United States, here, the part of the country where I live now, we have the 4 seasons. We've got summer, we've got fall, we've got winter, we get spring. But in the Dominican Republic, the seasons are very different. And one of the most important seasons is hurricane season. And, as a kid, you were very aware, at least as a kid, I was very aware of hurricane season. This is when the world could possibly, could stop. These storms were incredible, just enormous. Anyone who's been through a hurricane knows exactly what I'm talking about. And the sky would go completely dark, and the winds would be tremendous. And I remember, our family, we went through a bunch of hurricanes, and I can remember the hurricanes being so tremendous. You'd be in our little house. We had one of these little houses with a zinc roof and little wooden walls, and the thing would just shake and roar in the storm. And you couldn't even hear your parents. I couldn't hear my mother or my grandmother or my grandfather yelling because the winds were so loud. And, you were really scared. I was really scared. But for another side of it, you were a kid. You didn't understand maybe the consequences so much. It was actually really exciting, too. I remember once where we were in the middle of a hurricane and we were all kind of hunkered down, and I was like looking out. And the rain, instead of coming down, the winds were so strong, the rain was going sideways. And I remember in the middle of the storm, we suddenly heard this really loud boom on the side of the house, and on the roof. It was like boom, boom. And it just sounded like, like I said in the book, like we were on the inside of a drum and someone was taking a stick and just going, hitting the top of the house, like boom, boom. And I did not know what it was. And, as a kid, I was like, wow, what is going on? Scared. And, and everything was all right. Our house didn't get blown into the sky or anything. And we were very lucky. But when the storm ended, all those kids ran out and we were like, what in the world? And what we found out was that the hurricane had been stripping all the palm trees of their coconuts and sending these coconuts flying in the air. And that sound, that boom we were hearing, was the sound of these coconuts just hitting the sides and the roof of our house. They were like little cannonballs, and it was just like boom, boom, boom. As a kid, it was sort of an extraordinary thing because, I was used to looking at those palm trees and looking at those coconuts, but the idea that there would be a storm so strong that it could throw coconuts, and it threw a lot more than coconuts through the air, and it would strike a house so hard was just astonishing. Yeah. But it's going to read just one little last piece of the book, and I'll let you all go. And Lola goes downstairs. Her grandmother is like, you should speak to the superintendent of our building, Mr. Meir. He knows more about the island than anyone. And so Lola goes down, and there's Mr. Meir. He's kind of a, old man, real, there's Lola, right? And Mr. Meir looked up from the contraption he was fixing. Your grandmother says you've been interviewing people about the island. Lola nodded nervously. Yes, sir. It's for a class assignment. What have they told you? She flipped through her sketches. Bat blankets, more music than air, fruit that makes you cry, beach poems, and a hurricane like a wolf. I see, Mr. Muir said. So no one told you about the monster? Lola's eyes got wide. She shook her head. No. Even those who know don't always want to talk about him. Mr. Muir turned to the old worn map he had of the island. Our island has always been a beautiful place. It was when I was your age, and it is today. But even the most beautiful places can attract a monster. A long time ago, long before you were born, that's exactly what happened. A monster fell upon our island. For once, Lola's pencil didn't move. And I think probably this is a good place to leave it. Don't worry, Lola's safe, the island's safe. Heroes will appear soon. And yeah, I mean, I hope you enjoyed this little journey back home. I spend so much time there. I go home back to the island, but I also spend a lot of time on the island in my head, in the Dominican Republic. A very famous writer said that there are places that are our heartland, where our heart resides, and the Dominican Republic is that for me. I don't think a day goes by where I'm not thinking about my family, the island, that farm, my grandfather, those bats, and even that mongoose. Oh, those mongooses were wild. I have a picture of a mongoose here, in case folks who don't know, if it's Leo Espinosa. I thought you were a really great mongoose right there. There's the cactus falling through the trees. Yeah. And anyway, I really appreciate you spending time, and hope you're all safe and well. Send my best regards to everyone and to my beloved island, the Dominican Republic, Santo Domingo, and hope you are all well. Thank you so much.